Hello there, Dr. Lawrence. How's it going?
Yeah, it's fine.
Very good. I'm just recording this now back in the UK, and thank you for taking the time in the evening. But actually, it was really nice meeting you in person in Hong Kong, at Hong Kong Polytechnic University, where strangely it's a small world. I was an intern there. In 2007, and then through contacts at RS, I got back in touch with the university and yourself to ask a few questions about these little things here, lithium polymer batteries, as I'm working on a project currently, as you know, about why industry makes choices around how they design products which use lithium batteries. So I wondered if I could ask you a few questions about this, as you were extremely helpful when I visited, and I thought this would be great to get recorded.
Okay, sure.
So I guess the first up, just for a little bit of a recap, is where it all started was I had this pair of headphones, which was basically 6 years old. As you can imagine, the battery gets tired. And I thought, oh, I'm an engineer. I'll pop it open and change one of these out. Shouldn't be too difficult. Watched a few videos online. And then, as you know, it actually turned out to be quite a lot more complicated than I had previously expected. And so even though I bought about now 6 different batteries, that all claim to be replacement for this particular model. The tricky thing is the charging is intermittent, and so obviously people are sometimes a little bit suspicious, and they use phrases like planned obsolescence. But I think when we were discussing this, it wasn't necessarily as simple as goodies and baddies deliberately making it so you can't change batteries. It would be great to just get your perspective on what I think most engineers realize is that these are quite dangerous. If you puncture them or short circuit them, they can explode. But I wondered, could you just give us a little bit of a background of why you think these things aren't, obviously sort of able to be changed out so simply, unless, of course, they're in plastic and they're in a special container like old school mobile phones. So I just wondered, could you give us a little bit of background on how you've seen that evolving over the years?
So, first, I think if you go to their technical support center, they don't want to change the battery for you, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then they simply ask you to buy a new one, new earphone. Okay, one thing is the dangerous if you wear you pays by yourself. If you're not professional,
yeah,
you try to change the battery. I think this is one of the concern. The second concern is I think about the profit.
yeah,
Suppose that after a few years, nowadays the cycle, that the product cycle is very short. Actually, they don't want to make it too reliable so that you can use so many years and then you don't update the version. I think this is one of a good excuse that they ask you, oh, the battery is too old, then you can't fix it. You go to buy a new earphone. That's about the commercial market,
yeah.
not because of the technology.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that, I think it's easy for consumers to say, boo, that's not very good behavior.
Mm.
But I think consumers probably have to be a bit honest and say, not to sort of necessarily call Apple out, but really, what is the big difference between an iPhone 13 and an iPhone 14? Yet people seem
Yeah.
to upgrade even if they haven't smashed the screen or dropped it, in the water or
I
something.
know.
So I do think the excuse of saying you're upgrading when the product is probably fine in terms of, hardware and software, there's probably a little bit that consumers have to take on the chin and say, if you think of yourself as ethical, you need to act that way a little bit. Um, if I could take a little step back, I was doing a little bit of sort of research on the sort of lithium polymer technology, and of course it's been around for years. And if I briefly mentioned mobile phones, I find it almost sort of comical that when I had a mobile phone that was, I think, a Motorola or something, the battery would click out and it was
Yeah.
user serviceable, and I could click it out and click a new one in. Now, of course, the first mobile phones were very big and very heavy, but actually it got to the point where really there was no difference, and yet you could still use a service
Yeah,
in.
if you just use the phone to talk, but not
Yes.
other purpose.
So I wondered, even with I remember having a Galaxy Note, which was I think about as thick as a common iPhone today, and you could change the battery out in that. And I just wondered from your perspective, from a design and industry perspective, do you think it is just the pressure to keep the sort of consumer flywheel going, or is it genuinely you have to build so much extra design work to allow a battery to be changed by a user safely? Is that one of the reasons why there's a
I have to say
reluctance?
nowadays, the manufacturer, they have a good reason to do that. The
Yep,
first is before you have Nokia, uh, the Sony, that the size is big, so
yep,
that they can design the battery pretty close to the back, and
yep,
the battery is pretty high. So you can just remove the bag and then you can change the battery and it's pretty safe. But nowadays, because they want to reduce the size very significantly, they don't make it very, very small. And so the design become very critical. So that nowadays, the battery will get very close to electronic components. So if you are not professional and you change it and you have a problems, you may damage the product by changing the battery. So that's
absolutely.
why they have a strong reason that don't touch, because we don't guarantee you can make it. And if you have any problems when you update or change it, then who will take the responsibility?
Yes.
That is the reason why they now they do not allow. They simply ask you to change the new product.
Yeah, and I guess to be sympathetic, if I had bought some headphones and I put in a third party battery that I got from Alibaba or AliExpress,
Yeah.
and then it blew up, and then I thought, oh, okay, that was clearly because I bought a dodgy battery, and then I put the
Yeah,
original back in, sent it back to Sennheiser, and said, oh yeah, it's your product, it's no good.
yeah.
Of course, Sennheiser are going to go, oh, we know you probably did you put a thing from AliExpress in, but now we're left with the cost of having to debate you legally and work out whether we should reimburse you if I were a bad actor in that sort of system. So I think I am sympathetic that companies would find that sort of thing arduous. But I guess we've talked a lot about the reasons why it's basically problematic and it's difficult. What do you see as being some of maybe the more progressive things, given that some of the 2006/66/EC legislation, which, to give a quick summary, is basically saying products do not have to be user serviceable, but they should be serviceable by a professional. How do you think that's going to change the consumer product landscape with respect to batteries and power
That's why
management?
we have a market that some professionals will do the things for you, but not the original manufacturer. It
Yeah,
means somebody will change the battery for you, even change the CPU of the mobile phone for you. They get the components and they do it for you, but the cost about the replacement is much, much lower than the original one.
yeah.
We have this market, and this is actually a huge market.
I see, and I'm reminded a little bit of, I won't name names, but having sort of spoke to a few friends who work in automotive industries, I remember a figure that really sort of shocked me as a rule of thumb that when a company sells a diesel car, that 50% of its profits doesn't come from the car alone. 50% also comes from the service and spares and repairing of it. And yet, actually, moving to an electric car, it's kind of turned the business model into a complicated place because you're not replacing an oil sump and a carburetor and an air filter and all these sorts of things which they used to make money off. And so that is one of the reasons that also electric cars are so expensive. So getting back to products containing lithium batteries, do you think that in order for things to be truly serviceable, they would inevitably end up being more expensive because the business model now has changed? It's been disrupted.
I think, I don't know in UK, but in Hong Kong or in China, actually we have a market to deal with this kind of things. We
Yeah.
have a, we call it shop to repair your phone, repair your electronic things. And if they get the component from the manufacturer and they can repair it very professionally. and they have a very reasonable cost to do the replacement for you. Of
Hmm.
course, for electronic car, it's a little bit different because it's related to your safety.
Yeah.
Whether you trust the third party to do it for you, this is really a critical. But for
Yes.
small electronic applications like mobile phone, then definitely, yeah, this market is really actually really big and actually really active now in Hong Kong and also in China.
Yeah. And I was visiting my in-laws as well as working in Hong Kong. And it, I remember just anecdotally saying to me, I feel like culturally there is, I realize it's a very small sample just of my father-in-law, but it's surprising that even when I was just staying there for a few weeks, we repaired lighting and a washing machine and just a few other small things around the house. And that was just, it just felt very natural and very normal. And I don't think he was saving them up just because I was arriving. He genuinely has, a good toolbox and lots of soldering gear and things like this. And I sort of asked him about it, and I felt he was really saying just this is normal in Hong Kong. The idea that you would just throw something away without at least trying once to fix it, either yourself or phoning a friend or a repair person, then that I think is something that I wonder whether you feel it is as simple as, do you think there is a bit of an east west division in these sorts of things, or am I reading too much into it?
I think you're talking about environment protection, something like that, right?
Well,
That
just
means
the
we
the the attitude towards repairing your stuff. I do wonder whether in
uh,
London, are we too quick to say my wireless headphones have stopped working, I'll just throw them in the bin and buy a new one. Whereas I feel in Hong Kong there's a little bit more attitude towards trying to
I
repair
have
it.
to say not popular here. The
Uh-huh.
point is in UK or even Australia, people get used to fix things by themselves.
Yeah.
They will go to the hardcore market, buy some components, tools, and then fix by themselves. They
Hmm.
have time. They learn from the book or from Google, YouTube, and then try to do it. Here we are very busy. Usually we are very busy, very long working hours, and we
Yep.
have very small living space. So we don't have time to keep things. Okay, some equipment doesn't work. We keep it here, and then hope one day we have time to fix it. Usually we don't. We are very tired when we go
I'm not
home.
gonna lie, there's
So
a lot of stuff in boxes in my in
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah. We don't have space.
relative's
We
house.
things is not very expensive. We
Yeah.
have in Hong Kong our salary not usually not bad, so usually we buy new things.
Yeah.
Especially, I have to say we we get many products from China. They're very cheap.
Yeah.
So why don't we buy new things but repair the old things? That's
Yeah.
why we prefer buying new things.
Yeah, and I think this is I was speaking with a designer about this subject just yesterday, actually. Wasn't even expecting to get onto this subject, but he mentioned a new Chinese or relatively new Chinese website called Temu. And I don't know whether you're familiar with it, but it feels like he described it as a sort of mashup between Amazon and Alibaba, in that it's really, he described it as fashion electronics. So you can buy just staggeringly cheap electronics. And he said the problem is that they are probably going to break either instantly or within a year. But because it's fashion, because you're buying something which isn't about owning it with, dare I say, a degree of pride for 6 years, it's a different mindset. It's a different consumer. So he just said stuff like that. The battery's going to be glued in. There's no way you're going to change it because it probably cost like 10 Hong Kong dollars, a pound,
That's true. That's true. That's
So
true.
I think again it comes back to this tension between the aspiration of planet and sustainability, but also consumers sometimes just doing the wrong thing, shall we say, to call it what it is. Um, anyway, I won't continue to berate consumers, as obviously your experience a lot is. I know you can't talk about all the companies you worked for, perhaps on video, but you've worked in an extraordinary range of different companies, and I wondered a little bit how. I asked you a question about whether you see these sorts of batteries almost becoming needing to almost not have too many choices. And the analogy I gave was how alkali batteries, they have maybe 20 different sizes. And I realized that as a designer, you want to be able to have things exactly as you want. But I wondered, do you think after a certain amount of time, the economies of scale will mean certain lithium cells start to almost just become the most popular of that particular size and that power density? Do you think that will happen, or do you think we'll stay in this state of let's just have whatever we want because the factories are so good in making these in any shape, size, capacity, voltage you want?
I think it depends on whether the cooperation between the battery factory manufacturers and the electronic manufacturer. That means
Yep.
that if they order
Yeah.
a lot of the batteries for the particular product, then they will do some protections. Make
Yeah.
sure the all battery will come from this product, but not by the manufacturer. So what they are going to do is they will measure the battery, the change of the battery over time,
Yeah.
and then make sure they have a checkpoint so that the battery will be exactly the same model.
Yeah.
And you cannot get this model from the battery. Then they have agreement that this kind of battery only support for this particular product, so that you cannot sell alone outside. So then make sure outside will not have this battery so that they cannot do the replacement by themselves.
Yeah. No, I think these things. I'll just grab a battery for an example of some of the ones I've been testing. I find it slightly extraordinary that there's a battery here that has, almost exactly the same specification as this, and I could get another one that is a slightly different variation. And these are all supposedly 700 milliamp hours. Their thickness is basically within like quarter of a millimeter difference. Yeah. And for me, it begs the question of these are technically different SKUs. This is maybe 3 millimeters longer. This is maybe 0.5 millimeter thicker.
But how
I think
about the specification? I mean, how many
all,
voltage?
all
the same.
allegedly the same specification of being 2.7 watt hours, 3.7 volts, and 700 milliamp hours. And I do feel that, that's what I'm saying about these batteries is it should just be agreed that it should be a certain size, a certain capacity, and almost like consolidate that as a type, that all manufacturers just say, yes, we will call that the 4A battery or whatever, of the lithium world. Does that seem realistic, or do you think it's just too complicated now to regiment battery manufacture?
I suppose it should be the same. It means that the battery, one of the battery put in the product, suppose it works, but I don't know they purposely, the manufacturer of the product try to do something that you must follow a particular battery, so that they can fit into the product. For other battery, they have the way to check whether the model is correct or not. If the model is not correct, they will block it in the voltage regulator, so that to tell like iPhone to tell that, oh, this is not our trusted third party accessory, so you cannot use this battery, something like that.
Yeah, actually, that brings us on to just one little thing that we did discuss, because as you can appreciate, I was going round and round in circles, trying to figure out basically whether this little PCB, which is essentially a protection circuit for anyone watching this who doesn't know, that basically stops the battery over discharging too fast, or indeed being charged too aggressively. It doesn't change the characteristics of the cell, the silver thing, but I was a little bit curious to know whether you thought that, it had a secret chip, a bit like, printers and ink. And I think, I won't steal your thunder, but I think you said, no, it's probably not the battery. It might be reverse engineered to be compatible with this. So I wonder, could you just describe the thinking behind that, as I thought it was an interesting possibility, even though I should stress that we're not stating that Sennheiser do or do not do that. it's just a theory and ignorance. But what is the concept of reverse specifying?
Actually, I think they find a model of the battery and then study the characteristic of the battery, the change of the voltage over time.
Yep.
If the change over the time, they mark few milestone. If you fit this few milestone, they recognize that this should be the original battery or there's an expected model of the battery. But if this few milestone does not fit, then they claim it is not from the trusted third party. So they will claim that this battery is not the expect and simply they block. Then how they block? Well, now we have microcontroller. You simply do some write a program in the microcontroller, then you can block the battery very simply.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things, again, we don't know for sure, because I haven't been able to verify it, and I don't really believe Sennheiser are going to tell me. But it's peculiar that I've put in 6 different batteries now into this, and they all sort of exhibit pretty much the same characteristic of charging a little bit, getting confused whether they're full or empty, and then it just stops. And so, it has these light indicators which just basically go a little bit weird, and then it stops charging, which has the effect of it not reaching full capacity. And so consequently only giving half an hour when it should be giving, sort of 15 hours of battery. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the root cause, because another option is that there could just be an internal fault. I might have got some water in there, or a cable might have frayed and corroded, or a chip, some sort of IC chip might have given up and aged. And again, I think, if anything, for me, this discussion isn't about can I fix my headphones? The discussion is, of course, about what is it that you think as designers we can do to make sure that people can give their products a bit more life without necessarily having to put themselves at risk of either creating an explosion or a fire, or just destroying the product by cutting the wrong cable or something.
So
Are there any good examples out there?
I know you mean you want to ask the manufacturer to let you work out the product with the battery outside, or you want them to change the rules. I don't get it.
I think what I'm saying is, I wonder, with the legislation saying manufacturers and designers need to allow repair to happen, albeit by a professional, I wonder whether you think companies' reaction will be to find a loophole to say, okay, we'll let you repair it, but it's going to be really expensive and hard work. Or do
But
you think,
I
sorry,
don't think they have the obligation to let you do it, because that's their
no,
product. You buy it, take it,
yeah,
and they don't have obligation that they should let you connect it with other batteries and make it works,
exactly. And
right?
the legislation doesn't say you should be able to go on Alibaba. It says that you should be able to have a professional service it and change it, which is completely different. And I'm probably a bit unusual in that I'm in a gray area between not being a professional technician, but I am, of course, a chartered engineer. So I would say I'm sort of in the middle area of would like to repair, probably am not going to kill myself. But at the same time, I'm not like one of these Apple trained service engineers who have gone through all the training. So I probably fall in this middle ground of basically sort of somewhere between the legislation and nothing. Um,
I
I,
I don't know what laws can be applied in this kind of I would say regulations or rules. The point is they sell the product. Suppose they have the full responsibility about the product, how to make it worse. But now it seems you want to do something on top of their product, and you
mm,
hope they agree you can do this something additional on top, but they don't agree actually, of course.
yeah,
Then it's quite hard to campaign them.
exactly. Hope isn't a legal word.
Yeah,
Hope,
they're doing illegally, actually, but they're
yeah.
doing legally actually. But you are, I would say, make it really seriously. Then I would say you are doing something illegal actually, because you
Mm.
don't follow their way to repair or to change their products.
Yes,
So
and
precisely, I think you take the wording very seriously. They will say you are the illegal, but not they are the illegal.
yeah, exactly. And I completely agree with you from the legal standpoint. And certainly the blog I'm writing, and I should probably say it for the record on this video, of that this is a, I'm a qualified engineer and I'm doing this for the sake of discussion. But yes, the terms and conditions of this product by Sennheiser, I should not be taking it apart at all.
Yeah.
The screws are actually covered up and hidden with little stickers. It is not intended to be, interfered with by someone who is not,
Yeah.
should we say, professionally competent, which I would like to think from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers believe I am. So for the sake of this discussion, that's how I'm going. Look, thank you so
Oh,
much
you can
for
request. My suggestion is you
yeah,
can request.
yeah,
The point is I want to save the earth. I
yeah,
want to have too many broken products that you waste the earth resources. Then let's see what they respond. I
yeah,
mean, you can try. I support you. Yeah,
yeah.
let's see how they respond.
So I guess maybe a sort of closing question of just what are your thoughts on how product development will be affected by people being should we say more aware that these are difficult? What sort of effect do you think it'll happen? Do you think we will have cheaper, more fashionable Temu disposable products, or do you think there will be a split and the premium companies will, you're probably familiar with Fairphone. They that is part of their brand, is saying we'll let you repair things. You can change the cable, you can repair a socket or a plug for the USB if it breaks. Do you think that is the trend, or do you think it's more complex and a bit more
I think
unpredictable?
both exist. In a market, usually if you don't do the monopoly, you must at least have a two big company, two big brother to fight. So
Yeah,
one with iPhone, all thing professional, very beautiful, but very expensive. Another way is cheaper, easier, but they allow you to have more flexibility to do something on top, something like that. So that's why I say they coexist. Both
yeah,
of them will be in the market.
yeah. No, and I think that is, as they say, that is the nature of the free market, is we will
Yeah.
see how it will pan
It's
out.
good. It's
So
good. We have a choice at least, right? At the
yeah.
end.
But look, Dr. Lawrence, thank you ever so much for your time. Honestly, this has been a real pleasure, and it was so kind of you to, host me at the university, and it was lovely being back again. Took me down memory lane. So, thank you again, and I hope to put your advice and insights to good use in writing up the blog. And I hope this has been useful for people watching.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.